hope you enjoyed tonight's features on HTN, America's Family Channel.
Come on, baby, watch the WB.
Máxima diversión.
Starting off part 2 of the defunct TV channel's Iceberg is the latest victim of cable TV's slow, painful demise, HBO Family, and you know the rest. Launched on December 1st, 1996, HBO Family was HBO's kid-friendly spin-off, bundled for free with a standard HBO subscription. Its schedule was filled with G and PG-rated films and series aimed at a younger audience. In fact, it was the only HBO channel that never aired R or MA-rated content, making it a safe space for kids. So don't expect any episodes of Co-ed Confidential.
Oh god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
In its early years, the channel mostly aired theatrical films and a handful of older HBO-produced children's programs like Happily Ever After, all of which was commercial-free. But it wasn't until 1999 that HBO gave the channel a proper identity. That year, they invested $18 million to revamp HBO Family with a major push into original programming. This 1999 relaunch brought in original series like A Little Curious, a 24-minute anthology series that experimented with a variety of animation styles, 30 by 30 kid flicks, a showcase of short films made by actual children, and by far their most iconic program, Crashbox, a chaotic clay animated game show filled with brain teasers and wacky minigames. Although it only ran for 2 seasons, Crashbox stayed in reruns for over a decade, thanks to its unique aesthetic and energy. By 2001, HBO Family organized its programming into 2 distinct blocks, Jam for preschoolers and Magnet for other kids. Jam aired in the mornings and was aimed at TVY and TVY7 audiences, led by a purple blob mascot, also named Jam. Weird, but kinda cool. The block also featured a curated mix of acquired shows, mostly forgotten gems and Canadian imports like Little Lulu, The Adventures of Paddington Bear, and Harold and the Purple Crayon, which gave Jam a premium boutique feel that stood apart from your typical kids lineup. One show I really loved the most though was I Spy. Based on the picture books, this animated series debuted on December 14th, 2002, and followed 2 characters named Spyler and Cece as they solved visual puzzles with the help from the audience. Each of these shows helped define HBO Family's identity as a premium children's destination, something you wouldn't find regularly on broadcast television. But most of these shows would get cast aside when in January of 2016, Jam was rebranded as HBO Kids, coinciding with HBO's deal with Sesame Workshop to premiere new episodes of Sesame Street and other related Sesame programs, while PBS would receive these new episodes a year later. With Big Bird and Elmo front and center, HBO Family had 2 of the most iconic faces in children's television anchoring its content. Sadly, when the Sesame Workshop deal expired in late 2020, those shows disappeared by next month. After that, the channel basically gave up, defaulting to a lazy loop of older shows and family-friendly movies. And with the rise of streaming, hell just HBO Max in general, there was really no point in keeping this channel around by 2025. So, on June 11th, 2025, Warner Bros. Discovery announced that it'll be ceasing transmissions of HBO Family alongside Thriller Max, Movie Max, and Outer Max on August 15th. Looking back at the life of HBO Family, it's just a reminder of how spin-off channels have gradually become obsolete. What was once a key extension of a premium brand eventually became an afterthought, and with this closure, it raises the question, who's next?
Tune in and start saving with Cable Value Network's free shopping channel. Watch CBN in Salem on Viacom Cablevision, Channel 29.
Cable Value Network, or CVN for short, was a home shopping television network launched in 1986 and was an early competitor to QVC. Based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, CVN became one of the leading shopping networks during the 1980s, offering televised product showcases and live sales events that captured the attention of viewers across the country. Interestingly though, CVN agreed to be acquired by QVC. This is despite CVN actually being the larger of the 2 networks at the time. Regardless, QVC agreed and absorbed its main rival, consolidating its dominance in the televised home shopping industry and setting the stage for its rise as a household name throughout the 1990s. Although CVN is no longer in operation, its legacy still lives on, as some former CVN employees went on to establish a new shopping network called Value Vision. Over the years, the network would soon rebrand several times as Shop NBC, then Evine, and continues to operate under the name Shop HQ. Get all your local sports updates with the 24-hour Sports News Network by AmusingLuis. Call your local provider today. Talk about ambitious. AmusingLuis Sports News Network, or SNN for short, was one of the earliest attempts to create a 24-hour, round-the-clock television channel devoted exclusively to sports news. According to an article from the New York Times, SNN had a team of 12 anchors and brought in celebrity commentators like Larry Sonka for football and Mickey Mantle for baseball. Now, the network didn't air any games, but it offered 30-minute news reports every half hour, where its broadcast day was split into 4 major parts. It all kicked off at 5 p.m. Eastern with a 3-hour evening news block. The segment featured live reports from game sites, a review of that day's events, live interviews, and a viewer's guide to what games would be televised that night. Don't watch the sports, let us tell you what's happening. After that came 6 hours of primetime programming, which was fast-paced and loaded with updates. You'd get non-stop score updates, highlight clips from games in progress, post-game wrap-ups, and interviews all throughout the evening. From 2 a.m. to 9 a.m., the overnight segment would pick up the slack. It followed late games, offered deeper analysis, more interviews, and helped viewers gear up for the day ahead with a guide of that day's televised events. Then, during the daytime, SNN shifted to live news conferences, player profiles, behind-the-scenes features, and progress updates on afternoon games. Which really doesn't sound like a lot considering you're airing a 24-hour network that doesn't air any sports. As big and well structured as this project was, SNN struggled to find its footing, only reaching 5 million of the roughly 55 million cable households at the time. Just 10 months after launch, it began facing several issues such as the channel losing sponsors, burning through their cash, and even reports of anchors not showing up to work. On December 17, 1990, SNN officially ceased operations as its parent company, AmusingLuis Television Network, filed for bankruptcy. AmusingLuis attempted to sell SNN to Landmark Communications and Telecable Corporation, but the deal would fall through, partially because Telecommunications Inc. was already moving forward with its own competing sports news channel, Prime Sports Network. On top of that, Newsport was also entering the scene, and eventually ESPN News would arrive and clean house. So yeah, clearly there was a significant demand for 24/7 sports news, but SNN launched too early, lacking the necessary backing, reach, and momentum to survive. So I was going to include these as separate entries because, well, 2 early channels that were operated by HBO, I mean, that sounds pretty interesting. But going down the rabbit hole, I started to realize there really wasn't much info on these channels, so I decided to combine them. On April 1st, 1979, HBO, or Home Box Office as it was referred to, would launch their first attempt at a companion channel completely marked for families named Take Two. This was marketed as a mini paid premium service that catered to families that only air G and PG rated movies. No R-rated films, no edgy content, just wholesome stuff. The programs were grouped into theme blocks like Family Theater, Center Stage, and a kids block called Merry-Go-Round. There's really not much information regarding Take Two. Hell, there's not even any idents or promotional advertisements of this at all. On the contrary, cable systems weren't eager to carry it, and subscribers weren't rushing to sign up either. Eventually, Take Two would be overshadowed by a new, more mainstream movie channel, Cinemax. Cinemax would be proven to be popular amongst consumers, and as a result, Take Two vanished without a trace on January 31st, 1981. Although HBO now had a desirable second companion channel, it still wasn't that family-oriented channel they were wanting it to be. And so, in 1986, HBO tried again with Festival. Rather than traditional families, Festival was more focused on being tailored for older, more conservative audiences, so it did air rated R films, just edited down to be less violent and risque. Other than edited down rated R films, it aired a mix of family-friendly hits and HBO specials, like concerts, stand-up comedy, nature documentaries, and even ice skating performances. Was that even considered entertainment back then? However, just 2 years after launch, Festival was reported to have about 30,000 subscribers, which is a drip in the bucket compared to HBO's near 15 million subscriber base. And yeah, at the end of 1988, HBO would shut down Festival. The next serious attempt at a family-friendly spin-off wouldn't come until 1996, with the launch of the aforementioned HBO Family. The following is an important announcement. Good news, everyone! I'm proud to announce that I have officially rolled out memberships. If you like to support what I do, this is a great way to help out. A lot of time and effort goes into making each of these videos, and with your support, I'd like to expand operations. It'll allow me to get an extra hand making the video process faster, so hopefully in the future I could upload more than one video a month. Also, with a little more free time, it'll allow me to start storyboarding the history of Disney, I guess. With that video, I like to do the whole company rather than just the channel. It's an ambitious project and could take a while, but I think it could be done. Members who join will get a loyalty badge that changes color over the months and shoutouts alongside Patreon members, as well as early access to new videos 48 hours before their release. This channel rarely gets any sponsors, so your support really helps keep the channel alive and thriving. So if you want to join, the button is right next to the subscribe button. Anyways guys, that's really all I had to say. Thank you for your support, and let's get back with the video. This is AmusingLuis.
Watching Home Theater Network, cable's first and only premium family movie service. All the entertainment you're looking for is here on HTN, America's premier family channel.
They don't make channels like these anymore. Home Theater Network, or HTN for short, was a cable television network launched in 1978 that specialized in family-friendly entertainment. It primarily aired G and PG rated films, offering a middle ground alternative to the edgier content seen on premium networks like HBO, Cinemax, and Showtime. Its lineup included titles like Days of Heaven, Hide in Plain Sight, and the fiendish plot of Dr. Fu Manchu, along with kid-friendly hits like The Muppet Movie and My Brilliant Career. HTN also had access to a solid catalog of Disney films, including Freaky Friday, Snowball Express, Pete's Dragon, Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and the North Avenue Irregulars. This was before Disney Channel was even a thing, so it kinda was a big deal. HTN marketed itself as a lower-priced premium service for families, offering safe quality movies without the R-rated edge. And while the network did manage to provide a positive cash flow, it struggled with subscriber growth that ultimately led to its parent company, Group W, shutting down the network in January of 1987. After its closure, HTN's satellite transponders were sold to TWA Marketing Services, a subsidiary of Transworld Airlines, which also purchased the naming rights to HTN's travel-themed programming block known as the Travel Channel, which would be the name used to relaunch the channel and is still used to this day. Today, Travel Channel is now owned by Warner Bros. Discovery, and from what I heard, the channel is now focused on paranormal programming, which is an interesting shift because this channel used to be about travel and leisure. So yeah, interesting example of channel decay.
For 15 years, Accent Health has delivered trusted health information, and today it is the programming choice for more than 40,000 medical practitioners.
Okay, to be honest, the only reason why I included this is because I remember seeing this all the time in the clinic waiting room when my grandmother had appointments. Otherwise, I think most people would have forgotten about it. Accent Health was a private closed-circuit television network launched in 1995, designed specifically for clinics and hospital waiting rooms. It aired health and wellness content to educate and engage patients while they waited to see their doctors. The service was powered by CNN's resources and correspondents, including Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. Sanjay Gupta and HLA Morning Show host Robin Meade, who frequently appeared in segments for the service. To me, this just sounds like another one of CNN's spin-off channels like the Checkout Channel or CNN Airport, but for hospitals. CNN Home Depot, coming soon! By 2014, the service was said to be available in over 30,000 waiting rooms, reaching 200 million patients annually. According to its website, it generated revenue by selling advertising to companies that wanted to reach its patients in waiting rooms of doctors' offices. However, by 2016, CNN's parent company, Turner, began shifting its strategy and ended up selling Accent Health to a Chicago-based healthcare media company called Context Media. The company would soon rebrand to Outcome Health, and, well, things didn't really go great there. Outcome Health's top executives were later accused of defrauding investors and pharmaceutical clients by inflating advertising performance metrics. They were eventually convicted of fraud and now face up to 30 years in prison, so yeah, there's that. As for when Accent Health officially ceased operations, there's no concrete shutdown date that I can find, but it likely happened sometime in 2017.
Check out the new Las Vegas show with Bill Dano tonight at 11 on the all-new United Network.
In 1967, the United Network launched as an ambitious attempt to become America's fourth major TV network. It was founded by businessman Daniel Overmeyer, better known as the King of Warehouses, thanks to his fortune he made in the warehouse industry. Riding high on his success, Overmeyer decided to branch out and start his own television network called the Overmeyer Network. By the time the network was ready to launch, it had reportedly lined up more than 100 affiliates. But behind the scenes, Obermeyer was already facing serious financial difficulties. To keep the operation afloat and cover mounting expenses, he sought outside investment. As part of this late-stage restructuring, the network rebranded at the 11th hour as the United Network, officially launching on May 1st, 1967. Despite the hype and ambition, the United Network ran into high transmission costs, low advertiser interest, and affiliation delays. To make matters worse, the network launched at the very end of the television season, meaning most advertisers had pretty much blown over their budget. As a result, United Network only had one program, The Las Vegas Show, a late-night variety series, and even that show struggled to sell ad slots and had to resort to heavy discounts. Just 30 days after its debut, the United Network was shut down and filed for bankruptcy. Today, no known footage of the network survives. Only print ads and behind-the-scenes photographs remain, making it a fascinating and rare case of lost television history. Telefutura's origins would go all the way back to late 2000 when Univision Communications purchased 13 television stations from USA Network for $1.1 billion in cash. With these stations in Univision's hands, the company moved quickly, and just a few months later, they announced plans for a new secondary Spanish language network, one that would target bilingual Latino audiences, particularly males ages 18 to 34. While Univision was busy airing Televisa novelas and episodes of El Gordo y la Flaca, Telefutura leaned into a more diverse lineup. Instead of solely relying on Televisa content, they imported telenovelas from a variety of Latin American producers that included Venevisión and RCTV from Venezuela, RCN from Colombia, and even Rede Globo from Brazil. These novelas were scheduled mostly during weekday afternoons, which allowed the network to reserve evenings and weekends for Spanish-dubbed American films from the 80s and beyond. To give things a more premium feel, they grouped these movies into theme blocks, like Cineplex, Cinescape, Cine Especial, and their most iconic block, El Cine de las Estrellas. It was a clever way to hook viewers who loved Hollywood movies but preferred to watch them in a culturally familiar format.
Could you say whole speech again in Spanish?
Telefutura wasn't just about movies and novelas though, it also made a strong push into sports and news. One of its flagship shows was Contacto Deportivo, a nightly news program delivering highlights and analysis tailored for Hispanic audiences. Similarly to Azteca America, it also aired Friday night boxing matches and Liga MX soccer games on weekend afternoons. Speaking of Azteca America, remember when I said they were like the third alternative to Univision and Telemundo? Well, I might have been off. According to Nielsen Media Research, Telefutura actually ranks second among Spanish language broadcasters in the coveted 18 to 34 demo. Yeah, even beating Telemundo at one point, so technically Azteca was fourth. The network continued its momentum into the next decade when on February 26, 2010, Telefutura hit a major milestone with the finale of Buscando la Doble de Selena, or Search for Selena's Double, a reality competition that drew 1.9 million viewers, becoming the highest rated entertainment special in the network's history. By the end of 2012, Telefutura had firmly cemented itself as a youthful dynamic force in Spanish language television, so naturally you'd think they'd keep the name, right? No. On New Year's Day 2013, Univision rolled out a complete corporate rebrand, complete with a new logo and visual identity, and just a week later, on January 7th, 2013, Telefutura relaunched as Unimas, officially retiring the brand after just 11 years. As part of the rebrand, Unimas overhauled its primetime lineup with a sharper, more masculine tone, one that stood in contrast to Univision's romance-driven programs, and their goal was clear: capture younger Latino men. One of the most bizarre offerings that Unimas showed to its viewers, in my opinion, has to be the Colombian adaptation of Breaking Bad called Metastasis, which, I mean, just looking at this, it almost looks like a bootleg, but nope, it's an official adaptation. This is basically early Spike TV, except without the boobs. Launched in 2009, Tough TV was a digital broadcast television network aimed to be the destination for all things men, like sports, lifestyle content, action dramas, reality court shows, talk radio, and manly movies. Basically masculinity overload. The network would be a joint venture between Lucan Communications and Tough TV Media Group LLC. However, just like most men, Lucan Communications filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in 2013. This bankruptcy likely strained the company's financial ability to support itself, as just the following year, Tough TV launched a crowdfunding campaign to raise $50,000 on SparkMarket.com. but that would only manage to raise only $30. Yes, $30. That's like roughly the amount I get on my Patreon. This was due to the crowdfunding campaign actually being a limited public investment offering, which was restricted to residents of Georgia as allowed under their investment laws. After more strings of bad luck, including losing a civil court case against a former employee, on August 26, 2018, Tough TV would cease broadcasting without any announcement, thus ending the Guy network after less than a decade. There would be some murmurs of a 2019 return, yet that never occurred. But as of recently, it was announced that Tough would be making a comeback in September of 2025, offering live sports, live talk shows, and exclusive original scripted and unscripted programming. Whether this return will actually take place remains to be seen. This is UPI News Time. Okay, so if you don't know what UPI is, I'll try to give a quick summary of it. United Press International is essentially a news agency established in 1903 that wrote and distributed news articles, features, and reports to newspapers, broadcasters, and other media outlets of the time. For most of the 20th century, UPI was a major publisher in news, even rivaling that of the Associated Press. But by the early 1980s, UPI began scaling down as the AP gained dominance. Today, United Press still exists, but in a much smaller capacity. Now that you got that figured out, let's talk about their biggest endeavor, UPI News Time. This was a short-lived syndicated television news service produced by United Press International, launched on July 3, 1978, predating CNN by 2 years, technically making them the first all-news cable channel, although the way they presented the news is boring to say the least. UPI News Time delivered the news in 15-minute segments using still images and voiceover narration. Basically a slideshow with audio. Sound familiar? And like I said, they didn't really have any on-screen personnel, but rather in-studio narration to provide a budget-friendly alternative to full-motion news broadcasts. Honestly, this just sounds like a PowerPoint presentation of NPR radio. Then, in 1980, came CNN right out swinging. Right off the gate, CNN offered 24-hour cable news with full-time motion video, which was more dynamic and engaging than UPI News Time's slower-paced format of still images and audio. As CNN grew rapidly and became the standard for round-the-clock television news, demand for services like UPI News Time sharply declined, eventually leading to its discontinuation in 1981. Urban America Television, or UATV, was a short-lived over-the-air television network that launched in 2001. Its mission was clear: to cater to Black Americans as well as English-speaking Asian and Hispanic viewers from urban communities across the US. According to the network's website at the time, UATV had around 70 affiliate stations nationwide and claimed to reach more than 22 million households. And their goal was simple: to showcase the diversity and vibrancy of urban America by reflecting the different perspectives, styles, rhythm, and cultures of African Americans as well as English-speaking Asians and Hispanics. They aimed to provide fresh, inspirational, and positive family-friendly programming that would uplift and inform their audience. UATV would feature a mix of talk shows, music, education, sports, and entertainment. One particular unique aspect of their lineup was their airing of race films, movies produced in the 1930s and 40s specifically for Black audiences during segregation. These films, which featured an all-Black cast, had largely been forgotten until UATV helped reintroduce them to a new generation. In addition to that, UATV also produced a broad slate of original programs, many of which are sadly now considered lost media due to the network's short lifespan and limited archival efforts. Despite the ambitious vision and wide reach, UATV encountered financial difficulties as disclosed in its filings with the SEC. As a result, UATV was ultimately compelled to suspend all operations indefinitely in 2006. And just like many of the other early 2000s digital TV ventures, UATV quietly faded away, becoming yet another forgotten footnote in television history.
Research Channel, giving voice and visibility to discoveries that are changing our world. Think forward. Think Research Channel.
The Nerd Channel. Research Channel was a non-profit media and technology organization based at the University of Washington in Seattle, created to give leading researchers and academic institutions a platform to share their work with the public. It wasn't just a university project though. Over 70 institutions pitched in, including Johns Hopkins University, the Library of Congress, and even tech giants like Microsoft and IBM. Launched in 1996, Research Channel was essentially a pre-YouTube attempt at academic video sharing, except instead of uploading it to a website, they broadcasted it on an actual TV channel. The network showcased lectures, presentation, and research content, while also experimenting with advanced distribution and interactive technology. Through cable and satellite, Research Channel reached over 22 million US households. They also had a pretty forward-thinking website for the time, with an online video library offering more than 3,000 full-length programs available on demand and via live web streams. But despite the channel's strong educational mission, it eventually ran into the biggest threat of all, YouTube. As video sharing platforms exploded in the late 2000s, they became the go-to destination for academic institutions to upload their content directly to a global audience. Ironically, Research Channel began uploading their own content to YouTube as well, which basically rendered their original broadcast model obsolete. By March of 2010, the University of Washington announced it would end its support, and on August 31st, 2010, Research Channel officially shut down. While the channel is gone, many of Research Channel's content still remains accessible online on their inactive YouTube channel.
ZTV is the new alternative in music television. The network created to satisfy the outcry for the fastest growing musical format in the country, contemporary Christian music.
I have no idea how they got away with this name. I mean, ZMTV, and they're both music channels too. Anyways, Z Music Television was a Christian-oriented cable music channel that operated in the US from 1993 to 2000. Think of it as MTV, but instead of edgier alternative rock and TRL countdowns, it played contemporary Christian music across a variety of genres: rock, pop, country, gospel, reggae, you name it. If it had some allegory for Christ, it aired. The channel was originally launched by David McQuaid and was based in Lake Helen, Florida. But within a year, it got scooped up by Gaylord Entertainment, the same company that owns CMT and TNN, and they would move operations to Nashville, Tennessee. At first, this seemed like a win. Gaylord had the media clout to possibly take Z Music to the next level. But then, in 1997, Gaylord sold off both CMT and TNN to CBS, and left Z Music behind. Yep, Z Music was the only one left out of this cable music deal. Womp womp. From there, things slowly unraveled. The channel began losing support and funding, and by June of 2000, Z Music ceased operations entirely. Gaylord shifted its focus to a Christian music website it already owned, musicforce.com, in hopes of salvaging the brand during the early days of digital media. But the era of a 24/7 Christian music cable channel had come to an end. Hard to think there was a time when cable and satellite TV weren't a thing. Instead, people would mount antennas to their rooftop and pick up signals from free local broadcasting channels. Yeah, TV really sucked back then. But perhaps the most shocking part that it wasn't even that long ago. We're talking about the early 80s here. While cable TV did exist from as early as the 1940s, it was mostly limited to areas where reception was terrible, usually because of hilly terrain or remote distances from broadcast towers. And so, Video Entertainment Unlimited, otherwise known as VEU, was launched in April of 1980 as a solution to a growing demand for premium on-demand content. VEU operated as an American subscription television service and targeted households that had little to no access to cable. So yeah, this wasn't a bad idea. On the contrary, it was a pretty great innovation for the time. To be clear, VEU wasn't a channel, but rather an entertainment platform that allowed access to live TV, such as CBS, NBC, ABC, as well as on-demand programming like sports, movies, and series from premium participating networks. To be honest, it was a pretty good rival to cable TV, and for a while, it looked like it could stick around for years. Unfortunately, the home entertainment landscape was evolving fast. Cable TV was rapidly expanding, and more subscription services were flooding the market, squeezing out VEU's niche. Ultimately, the writing was on the wall, and on September 30th, 1984, just over 4 years after its launch, VEU shut down for good.
This is Mind Extension University, a Jones education network.
Similar to another educational television channel I've talked about, Knowledge TV was basically in the same lane. Launched in 1987 as Mind Extension University, the channel was a basic cable service created by Jones International in partnership with Colorado State University and the Iceberg Foundation. It offered college-level courses that helped students graduate from high school, improve their personal skills, or work towards their associate's, bachelor's, or master's degree. Students could enroll, pay tuition, submit homework, and interact with instructors via telephone. Over time, MEU expanded its academic partnerships to include over 30 colleges and universities. In 1996, Mind Expansion University was rebranded as Knowledge TV, shifting its focus to broader educational programming, including technology and media-related content. The channel aired programs such as Computer Chronicles and other Silicon Valley-focused shows, which kinda makes this channel sound like Tech TV. At its peak, Knowledge TV reached 25 million subscribers, though many cable providers only carried it part-time, meaning it was utilized to occupy idle airtime on public access channels and overnight paid programming slots on networks like Discovery Channel. But speaking of Discovery Channel, in 2000, they would eventually purchase the channel space and rebrand Knowledge TV to Discovery Health, a more health and wellness-based channel. Although the channel was around in 20 million homes, ironically enough, the founder of the channel, Glenn Jones, was unable to watch his own network due to cable provider Telecommunications having an overcrowded lineup. This made it difficult for the network to grow, leading to the decision to sell the channel.
Be sure to see the very last Blackhawk games at Chicago Stadium live. It's Hawk Vision. Call your cable company to order home playoff games at the same low price as last season.
What a show. I didn't even know this happened, and I'm from Chicago. If you've been a Blackhawks fan before 2007, then the name Bill Wirtz probably triggers heart palpitations. Is that me calling you old? Maybe. Bill Wirtz served as team president of the Blackhawks for over 4 decades, and while that sounds like an achievement worth celebrating, to many fans it felt more like a reign of terror, as many would criticize his way of handling business. To sum it up, he was like the Mr. Krabs of the NHL for just how cheap he was, and Hawk Vision? Oh man, this was like his magnum opus in penny pinching. Launched in 1992, Hawk Vision was a short-lived paid television network created solely to broadcast Chicago Blackhawks home games. It was owned by the Wirtz Corporation and operated in partnership with the defunct Sports Vision channel. But here's the kicker. Fans had to cough up $29.95 per month just to watch their own team play at home. Bill Wirtz believed that televising home games was unfair to season ticket holders, arguing that the value of in-person attendance should be protected. In practice, this meant removing Blackhawks games from free and cable TV broadcasts entirely. So, if you couldn't make it to the stadium, too bad. Pay up or miss out. Unsurprisingly, the backlash was loud and swift. Fans were frustrated, local viewership plummeted, and the team's popularity took a noticeable hit. By the time the 1994-95 NHL season wrapped up, Hawk Vision was already a relic. It officially shut down in 1995, leaving behind a legacy of frustration more than innovation. After Hawk Vision's closure, home games remained off local airwaves for over a decade. It wasn't until the 2007-2008 season when Bill Wirtz f***ing died that Blackhawks home games finally returned to TV. Not sure if people cried or cheered when this happened. Just when you thought Cubo was obscure, Smile TV just shows up and says, "Hold my beer." Smile was a free-to-air television network operated by TBN, the Trinity Broadcasting Network. If you don't know who they are, they're basically a Christian-based media company that focuses heavily on faith-based and religious programming, and Smile was no different. Launched on Christmas Eve of 2005 as Smile of a Child, it became one of the few religious networks specifically targeting kids ages 2 to 11, airing Christian-themed and family-friendly programming. Among its earliest and most recognizable shows were Colby's Clubhouse, a musical series starring a singing computer who teaches biblical principles, and Mary Rice Hopkins and Puppets with a Heart, a puppetry show blending Christian music with moral lessons. They also acquired a ton of shows, way too many to list, but some of the more iconic ones include VeggieTales, 321 Penguins, and JJ the Jet Plane, all of which, by the way, aired on Cubo at some point, so yeah, the similarities between the two were definitely there, both centered on faith and values. The channel started out as a 24-hour network in 13 markets, later expanding to 40, or maybe 57 US cities according to one article. On June 1st, 2015, Smile of a Child underwent a major restructuring where it was to share its channel space with Juice TV, essentially their version of MTV aimed at teenagers and young adults between the ages of 13 and 30, which aired Christian-themed music videos, talk shows, reality-style program, and even fundraising events. As part of this new adjustment, Smile's over-the-air broadcast time slot would be reduced to 9 hours daily, from 6 AM to 3 PM. Just a week after this change, the schedule was rebalanced to allow both Smile and Juice to operate in 12-hour blocks. And while the channel's linear airtime got slashed, Smile did continue to offer a 24-hour live stream on TBN's website, apps, and digital platforms. Side note, on the same day this restructuring happened, TBN also launched a new sub-channel called TBN Salsa, which, based on what I could dig up, was essentially Juice TV, but geared towards second and third generation Latino Americans, cause, you know, salsa! Unfortunately, the channel was shut down on May 1st, 2019. No official reason was given, but I bet my money it was due to low ratings. Back to Smile of a Child, at the beginning of 2017, the channel was rebranded as just Smile. This didn't really change a thing, it was practically a new coat of paint. In early 2020, Smile returned to being a 24-hour network after Juice was moved to TBN Salsa's former sub-channel space, which had been serving as a placeholder standard definition feed of the main TBN signal. But not even a month into Juice's return as a full-time network, it was discontinued on January 26, 2020, and replaced with Positive, a Christian movie channel. Juice did continue on as a live stream, but let's be real, the brand was already dead at this point. As for Smile, the writing was on the wall. Back in December 2019, TBN launched a new streaming platform called Yippee TV. Yippee was pitched as a family-friendly haven with shows like VeggieTales, The Adventures of Carlos Caterpillar, Owlgories, and the new VeggieTales show, which premiered in 2019 and was exclusive to the platform. The service cost around $50 a year, and based on charts from app figures, it actually made the top 50 grossing kids apps, so it seemed to be making a good chunk of change. In 2024, TBN launched yet another streaming platform, TBN Plus, which offered both free, ad-supported content and a premium subscription tier. It even included a smaller selection of Yippee's content. With both platforms growing, Smile's existence as a traditional over-the-air children's network became increasingly redundant, especially in a post-Cubo world. And so, on December 17, 2024, Smile began airing promos announcing that it would cease operations on January 12, 2025, urging viewers to make the jump to Yippee TV or TBN Plus. Once Smile ceased operations at midnight, the sub-channel space would be replaced with On TV For You, a network dedicated to infomercials and direct response advertising. Imagine being 6 years old watching Smile TV at the day of shutdown, only to be told a few minutes later that you need an oxygen tank. Oh, the sheer confusion of the 12 kids left to watching Smile TV.
He's like 3 years old and he's in a mobility scooter rolling around an oxygen tank.
PTEN, or the Primetime Entertainment Network, was a short-lived but memorable television network that launched on January 20th, 1993. It was a joint venture between Warner Bros. Domestic Television Distribution, a subsidiary of Time Warner, and BHC Communications, a subsidiary of Chris-Craft Industries. PTEN aimed to deliver a premium cable-style experience to over-the-air television, mirroring networks like Cinemax with a focus on high-budget serialized dramas, miniseries, and specials. Its lineup featured shows like Kung Fu, The Legend Continues, Point Man, Time Tracks, and its biggest breakout hit, Babylon 5, which even developed a cult following back when that was pretty rare. The network targeted adults between the ages of 18 and 54, which, let's be honest, is almost most people. And for a while in the mid-90s, PTEN was really a hit. So when it abruptly shut down in October 1997, it came as a shock to many viewers. As it turns out, Warner Bros. And Chris-Craft decided to go their separate ways to focus on launching their own full-scale broadcast networks. Warner Bros. Would go on to launch the WB, and Chris-Craft helped co-create UPN. So this was like more of a precursor. Did anyone else binge watch the Weather Channel growing up? No? Just me? Damn, it must be weird. Anyways, the Weather Channel Latin America is exactly what it sounds like. Long before smartphones gave us real-time forecasts in our pockets, viewers across Latin America had El Canal del Tiempo, the regional version of the Weather Channel. Launched in 1996, this 24/7 network delivered live weather updates, regional forecasts, climate-related news, and coverage of major storms or natural disasters, all in Spanish. Just like its US counterpart, the Latin American version featured on-air meteorologists, animated radar maps, and seasonal updates tailored to local countries and weather patterns. For many viewers, it brought a level of weather reporting professionalism that simply hadn't existed before in the region, so it wasn't just helpful, it was essential. The Latin American version was originally part of the Weather Channel's ambitious plan to become a global weather network, with hopes of launching versions in Europe and Asia as well. Unfortunately, those plans didn't pan out. By the early 2000s, the channel faced mounting challenges. According to Zen Network president Eduardo Ruiz, the business climate in Latin America had deteriorated to the point where it was nearly impossible to generate sufficient subscriber fees or to acquire the necessary advertising needed to reach the point of profitability. As a result, the channel, along with its Portuguese language sibling channel, shut down operations on December 20th, 2002, marking the end of the Weather Channel's international expansion. ISAT may have never been a mainstream giant, but for over 3 decades, it carved out a devout cult following across Latin America, thanks to its offbeat alternative programming. The channel launched on April 5, 1993, broadcasting from Buenos Aires, Argentina. From the beginning, ISAT positioned itself as a platform for content you weren't likely to find anywhere else, and for years, it stayed true to that identity. But after a long run, the channel quietly signed off on February 29, 2024. By the time of its closure, ISAT was owned by Turner Broadcasting, which had been acquired by Klaxon Interactive back in 2007. Its programming was a mix of independent Argentinian films, international cinema, and a surprising deep catalog of Asian films. Definitely not your average cable lineup. But ISAT wasn't just about movies, it also featured a range of TV shows, from British imports to adult animation, courtesy of Adult Swim and Comedy Central, plus a long list of reality shows. There were also distinct blocks like Cuentos de Terror, a horror storytelling series, alongside short films and, yes, even softcore stuff, if you know what I mean. By December 2023, rumors began circulating that ISAT's days were numbered. Then came the official word from Warner Bros. Discovery that ISAT, along with Glitz and Much Music Latin America, would cease operations on February 29, 2024. The closure was part of a broader restructuring effort aimed at prioritizing newer brands like TNT Novelas and Adult Swim. One less known detail I also discovered during my research was that the channel's original name was Imágenes Satelital, which kind of reflects how early this channel existed for just having a name like that. As a fitting send-off, the channel held a tongue-in-cheek funeral in Cordoba to honor its legacy, blending humor and social commentary about the channel's decline in the streaming era. If there was ever a channel that played an integral role in bringing high-quality documentary content to European audiences, it was Discovery World. Originally launched as Discovery Civilization Channel on October 1st, 1998, this former Discovery-owned network initially focused on history-centric programming. Broadcasting from Amsterdam, this channel reached a wide regional audience, with content available in multiple languages: English, Polish, Hungarian, Czech, and Russian, with Dutch subtitles commonly provided, ensuring accessibility to as many viewers across much of Europe. As the channel evolved, Discovery Civilization broadened its scope. In 2007, it was rebranded as Discovery Knowledge, and by April 18, 2008, it adopted the Discovery World name across Europe. The programming lineup expanded to include true crime, culture, and mysterious phenomena alongside historical content. Eventually, Discovery World found itself eclipsed by newer Discovery brands as the network reshuffled its global lineup. In Central and Eastern Europe, it was replaced by Discovery Turbo Extra in 2013. In Africa and the Middle East, it gave way to Discovery Family on March 31, 2016. The final markets to carry the channel were in the Netherlands and Belgium, where they would finally sign off for good on December 31, 2020.
This is NBC.
As the name suggests, NBC Asia was an NBC-owned television network launched on January 1, 1994, aimed at the Pan-Asian region. This included countries like Japan, India, and Malaysia, as well as the Philippines, South Korea, Pakistan, Taiwan, and Thailand. Despite carrying the NBC name, the channel was short-lived, shutting down just 4 years later on July 1, 1998. During its run, NBC Asia aired a mix of content from its US parent network, including NBC Nightly News, The Tonight Show, Late Night with Conan O'Brien, and Saturday Night Live. It also offered regional news tailored for Asian audiences and occasionally simulcast content from CNBC Asia and MSNBC. Sports fans weren't left out either. NBC Asia featured programming from NBC Sports and even launched a dedicated 24-hour feed called NBC Super Sports in select regions. But the closure wasn't due to low ratings or financial collapse. Rather, it was the result of a strategic decision by NBC to pivot towards launching the National Geographic Channel, capitalizing on the rising global demand for documentary and educational content. Meanwhile, NBC's remaining news and financial programming would transition to CNBC Asia. Perhaps the real reason the channel struggled was that NBC Asia wasn't allowed to air American primetime dramas. Because of regional licensing agreements, local broadcasters held exclusive rights to popular shows like ER and Law & Order. This meant NBC Asia's lineup was limited to news, talk shows, and sports, which probably made it tough to compete in a landscape increasingly hungry for premium drama content. So, while it had potential, NBC Asia ultimately became a footnote in TV history, remembered more for what it couldn't show rather than what it did. VRAC, or VR Delta K. This was a Canadian French language channel formerly owned by Astro Broadcasting before being handed to Bell Media. Before VRAC, the channel's space once belonged to another channel called TVJQ, short for Télévision de... it's French. Short for Télévision des Jeunes de Québec, this was a community-driven, youth-focused channel dating back to 1982. It was birthed from a cluster of experimental cable initiatives from Videotron and was loaded with Quebec-made kids shows, anime imports, and even an early collaboration with what would become Much Music. By 1987, Videotron aimed to transform TVJQ into a nationally licensed specialty channel. However, instead of licensing TVJQ in its existing form, the CRTC, Canada's broadcast regulator, approved the new license under the name Premier Choix TVEC for a fresh channel, Canal Famille. The new network officially launched on September 1st, 1988, replacing TVJQ entirely. Translated as the Family Channel, Canal Famille focused on children's content in its early years, with Canadian originals like Télépirate, Frippe et Pouillet, and Les Cotu, along with international shows such as Inspector Gadget, BB Folk, and various Japanese anime. But as the late 90s hit, competition would begin to heat up. Teletoon, a network that had cartoons tailored to every age group, would launch in Canada and eat into the Family Channel's viewership. To keep up, Canal Famille began shredding its childcare image and introduced an offbeat teen-centric program like Zone de Turbulence and the sci-fi comedy Dans et Galaxie Près de Chez Vous. However, that didn't prove to stop the declining ratings. By 2000, market share among children dropped to just 8.6%, a steep decline from its 25% peak before 1997. Knowing that trying to save the Family Channel brand was no use, Astro Media decided to reinvest and reimagine the channel as VRAC.TV. Gone with the soft family feel, it was replaced by a grunge-era logo, bolder graphics, and a programming lineup aimed squarely at tweens and teens. And miraculously, it worked. Just 6 months after the rebrand, ratings tripled. As VRAC.TV, the channel embraced youth culture head-on, mixing locally produced Canadian series with fan-favorite imports from Disney Channel and Nickelodeon. By 2006, VRAC.TV had introduced an HD feed and commercials. But the biggest shift came in 2013 when Bell Media acquired the channel. That's when things started to change. Soon after, VRAC.TV dropped the TV from its name, simply rebranding as VRAC. And in 2014, it introduced something called VRAC 2. While VRAC 2 sounds like a second channel, it actually wasn't. It actually was an evening programming block geared towards teenagers, featuring edgier and more emotionally complex series. So for American viewers, it had shows like Pretty Little Liars and Teen Wolf. The block would be proven to be a success, and as a result, VRAC will go all in, chasing the 13 to 35 demographic, and it doubled down on local French dramas, comedies, and teen thrillers. As a result, animation and other programs designed for younger audiences would be entirely removed by 2016, with probably the only exception being SpongeBob because, who doesn't like SpongeBob? Unfortunately for VRAC, it was in a tough position, not only by the fact that cable TV subscriptions were shrinking, but that they were trying to gain a tough-to-get demographic for linear TV in the streaming era, and unfortunately, it would be a fatal mistake, causing viewership to tank. In August 2023, Videotron, the channel's original distribution partner, dropped VRAC from its lineup. Without any foundational carrier, VRAC simply couldn't survive. Just 2 days later, Bell Media announced the channel's shutdown. According to Corinne Moses, Senior Vice President of Continent News at Bell, viewers just weren't numerous enough, and if Bell is saying that out loud, things must have been grim behind the scenes. Shortly after, on September 25th, the CRTC officially revoked VRAC's broadcast license, and just a week later, the channel quietly disappeared with no grand send-off after 35 years. Which is pretty strange to not acknowledge that kind of legacy, but I guess since they were dropped from all their main providers, no one was really watching, so I guess they said, who cares? It ain't easy being green. The more I learn about this channel, the more rage builds inside of me because I, an American, didn't get access to this Muppets treasure trove. But hey, it was 1998, I wasn't even born yet. The Kermit channel was a joint venture between Hallmark Entertainment and the Jim Henson Company. And yes, just as the name implies, it was a 24-hour channel dedicated to reruns of the Muppets and other Jim Henson productions. Despite the Muppets being born and raised in America, the channel never aired in the US. Instead, it was launched for international markets, most notably in Taiwan, India, Indonesia, and the Philippines. In 2001, Hallmark gained full control of the channel after the Jim Henson Company's then parent company, EMTV, faced financial trouble. Coupled with a downturn in the TV market and a shift in Hallmark's priorities, the Kermit channel began shutting down in several of its markets. It was eventually reduced to a programming block on the Hallmark network until December 2002 when all the remaining channels and blocks were shut down. For many German-raised Gen Z kids, this channel was likely a core part of their childhood. Junior launched on July 28, 1996 and remained on the air until December 31, 2022, broadcasting in Germany for an impressive 26 years, making it one of the longest-running children's television channels in the country. Aimed primarily at kids ages 3 to 7, Junior was filled with animated series, educational programming, and colorful characters that shaped a generation. It became known for airing beloved shows like Horrid Henry, Arthur, Maya the Bee, Masha and the Bear, Barbara Papa, The Hoobs, Tabaluga, B.B. Blocksberg, Heidi, Zigbee, Pinocchio, and My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. It truly was the go-to source for wholesome, family-friendly programming. Junior had even become home to certain Cartoon Network and Warner Bros. Programming before Cartoon Network itself launched in Germany. While Junior's bread and butter was mostly preschool content, between 2003 and 2007, it also experimented with an older audience through a blog called Junior XL, aimed at kids ages 8 to 13, which featured anime programming. Originally operated by EMTV, the same company I mentioned with the Kermit channel, Junior was sold in 2008 to Belgian company Studio 100 Media. That change brought a noticeable shift in programming. The nostalgic mix of retro cartoons was now replaced with a smaller, more repetitive lineup, and the channel's broadcast hours were cut to just 6 AM to 8 PM daily. By the 2010s, streaming services were taking over kids' content, and international heavyweights like Cartoon Network, Boomerang, Nick Jr., and Nicktoons were locking down exclusive rights to the most popular shows. As a result, Junior's once vast lineup shrank, and with it, so did its relevance. After 26 years on the air, Junior officially shut down at the end of 2022. And honestly, just based on the look and feel of this channel in its final years, it kinda looked like Germany's version of Universal Kids. EGG Network, short for Every Good Game, was a Southeast Asian 24/7 esports channel that quickly became the go-to hub for the region's growing esports community. Officially launched on June 7, 2016 and based in Malaysia, the channel broadcast across several countries including Australia, Indonesia, the Philippines, Brunei, Singapore, and of course Malaysia itself. Owned and operated by Astro Malaysia Holdings, EGG Network ran for a solid 7 years before it went off the air on January 23, 2023. During its run, EGG was far from just another cable channel. It was the destination for competitive gaming fans. It featured live coverage of major international and regional esports tournaments, such as Dota 2, League of Legends, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, Hearthstone, FIFA, Mobile Legends Bang Bang, PUBG Mobile, Street Fighter V, and Heroes of the Storm. You know, now that I think about it, this channel launched just a few years after G4 in America shut down, and it even outlasted its revival. So yeah, I think EGG did a far better job modernizing gaming content for a new generation. It embraced esports as a legitimate entertainment category rather than treating it like a gimmick. Unfortunately, in early 2023, Astro announced the channel's closure as part of a strategic decision to hyper-localize esports content. As a result, EGG's offerings were folded into Astro Arena and Astro Arena 2, sports channels that now integrate gaming coverage content alongside traditional sports, aiming to serve local audiences more directly. Yet another awesome TV channel that never made it to the States. Disney Cinemagic. This was a European exclusive TV channel that showcased Disney films of all kinds, classic animated features, recent theatrical releases, made-for-TV movies, and even Pixar titles and older Disney Channel original movies. The channel first launched in the UK on March 6, 2006 and gradually expanded to other European territories, such as France in 2007, Spain and Portugal in 2008, and Germany in 2009. Italy and Scandinavia received Disney Cinemagic as branded blocks on Sky Cinema Family in Italy and Disney Channel in Scandinavia. Headquartered in the UK, Disney Cinemagic focused heavily on Disney's film library, airing 3 to 4 movies daily, including both premieres and reruns. For animation fans, it also featured a healthy lineup of classic and modern Disney shows like Disney's House of Mouse, Lilo & Stitch the series, and Tarzan. One of the channel's biggest draws, though, was its first pay TV window access. That meant Disney Cinemagic often got to air Disney movies just 10 months after their theatrical release, a pretty big deal in the pre-streaming era. It also regularly aired Disney shorts, themed marathons, and special event programming, all of which gave a distinct premium feel for Disney fans in Europe. But, like many traditional cable channels, Disney Cinemagic's appeal faded away with the rise of streaming. As Disney shifted its global strategy towards direct-to-consumer services, Disney Plus gradually absorbed the channel's role across Europe. This led to a phased shutdown of Cinemagic, beginning in the late 2010s and concluding by 2020. Here we have what many consider France's answer to G4, a quirky, independent geek haven called No Life. Launched on June 1st, 2007, No Life was a free French independent television network available via ADSL, cable TV, and even on Twitch. It was created by Sébastien Rouchet and Alexandre Pilote, 2 content creators who co-owned a small production company called Pocket Chamois. For years, their creative projects were repeatedly rejected by traditional networks, so they took the matters into their own hands, and with almost no capital, they took advantage of IPTV's cost-effectiveness and launched No Life as a passion project. No Life's programming featured heavily on video games, anime, Japanese pop culture, and geek lifestyle. Its flagship show was 101%, a daily program somewhat akin to G4's Attack of the Show, where it featured gaming news, reviews, tech segments, interviews, and more. Its distinct visual style, clever production techniques, and authentic nerd energy earned it a loyal cult following among French gamers and otakus alike. But passion alone couldn't solve No Life's chronic financial problems. From the start, the channel struggled to stay afloat. A lifeline did come in the form of an investment from Ankama Games, a company the founders had previously worked with. This support, combined with the launch of No Life Online, a subscription-based catch-up service for global fans, helped keep the channel alive. Still, by 2014, cracks began to show. Advertising revenue dropped dramatically, and No Life became increasingly dependent on its online platform. On April 1st, 2018, during a special edition of 101%, the team teased the arrival of huge new projects. Sadly, it was a dark April Fool's joke. The reality was far more somber. No Life was shutting down in just 1 week. With no visible investors and dwindling resources, No Life aired its final program, The End of No Life, on April 8th, 2018, 10 years and 10 months after its humble and ambitious debut. In 2002, Turner Broadcasting System Europe would announce the first alternative Cartoon Network channel outside of America, known as CNX, or Cartoon Network Extreme? Maybe? I don't know. CNX was a British television channel that was launched on October 14, 2002, and aimed to capture the 16 to 34 demographic, basically me. It had a daytime schedule of programming seen on the Toonami block like Johnny Quest, Dragon Ball Z, X-Men, Batman Beyond, Tenchi Muyo, Gundam Wing, Justice League, and Samurai Jack. The channel also offered older teens as well as young adults on evenings, programs of drama, adult animation, and martial arts films. In addition to this, CNX also regularly aired live-action series and specials. To promote the channel's launch, CNX had 6 people attempt to set a new world record for continuous TV watching. 3 participants ended up succeeding in breaking the previous record of 46 hours, 30 minutes, and 50 seconds by watching CNX for 47 hours straight. For this, they earned a spot in the 2002 Guinness Book of World Records, as well as £5,000 in cash and £2,000 in audio-visual equipment. In early 2003, Turner Broadcasting System toyed with the idea of launching a US version of CNX, but as former Turner Entertainment head Mark Lazarus put it, such a move was not imminent. Ultimately, a US CNX never materialized, and honestly that's what just stings to me the most, because this just sounds like a dream channel. Meanwhile, over in the UK, CNX wasn't doing that well either. At the start of 2003, the channel introduced a daytime Toonami block, aiming to capitalize on the growing popularity of anime and action cartoons. And ironically, it was the Toonami block that resonated with most viewers. Because of that, Turner decided it was best to transition CNX to Toonami. And sadly, it would shut down a few weeks before its first anniversary on September 8th, 2003. As for the Toonami UK channel, at first it started off as usual, having Tom and Sarah as the channel's hosts, albeit Tom wasn't voiced by Steve Bloom and was instead voiced by Krishnan Stevenson. Eventually the channel was given its own unique look with bold black and white red logos that gave it a sleek, edgy feel. However, by 2006 the channel will completely change, and for the worse. You thought Toonami's rebrand in 2007 was bad? Well, this one's worse. The channel pivoted towards general youth entertainment and began airing a surprise lineup of live action series like Backyard Science, Parker Lewis Can't Lose, Stencil, Hanging with Mr. Cooper, and Life with Derek. Live action on Toonami, that's just blasphemous.
Take a look at your new Toonami. We're not like we used to be, we're different, in a good way.
Adding insult to injury, the change was just as dramatic. The entire look of Toonami was replaced with a softer, more playful blue color scheme with giggling blob-like mascots, which took over the bumpers, idents, and overall tone of the network. It marked a clear attempt to reposition Toonami as a more lighthearted, all-ages channel. But in doing so, it wasn't Toonami, it was just some dude wearing the skin of Toonami. Toonami UK would officially come to an end on May 2nd, 2007 when Turner Broadcasting announced it would merge the channel with Cartoon Network 2. Which inherited Toonami's top action shows and a curated selection of Cartoon Network's core programming. This move was part of a broader strategy to make room for Cartoonito, which originally launched as a preschool block on the original Cartoon Network 2. As the Cartoonito brand gained traction, Turner promoted it to a full-time standalone channel. Now I know to American viewers, Cartoonito feels like a recent addition, introduced in the 2020s, but believe it or not, the brand has existed since 2006. That means it's nearly 20 years old. As for Cartoon Network 2, it didn't last much long either. It was eventually replaced by Cartoon Network Plus One, a time shift channel that simply rebroadcast CN's programming an hour later.
Ya volvemos con Boomerang. Seguimos con Boomerang.
Boomerang, lo bueno vuelve. Boomerang outside of America is truly an enigma. While many international Boomerang channels started out mirroring the US version, they eventually drifted off into their own strange identities, and perhaps none had a more bizarre evolution than Boomerang Latin America. Like its US counterpart, Boomerang Latin America launched on July 20th, 2001 under Turner Broadcasting's International Division. Its early days were nearly identical to its American version, offering a steady stream of Warner Bros. Classics like Looney Tunes, Scooby-Doo, The Flintstones, and Tom and Jerry. Just with a Spanish-speaking announcer and some localization. But that would all change in April of 2006 when Boomerang shifted from being an all-animation channel to airing a mix of live-action shows, movies, and sitcoms. The rebrand aimed to capture a preteen and teen audience, especially girls, though there was still content for boys, with shows like Blue Water High and Flight 29 Down, basically a loss for kids. But one show that unlocked a core memory for me was Rebelde. I don't remember watching it as a kid, but I do remember it being a big deal when it crossed over to the US, so definitely a bit of nostalgia there. From an American point of view though, this shift felt odd. Normally, you'd expect telenovelas or teen dramas on Univision, not Boomerang. Like, was there seriously not a better channel suited for this? Still, this era ended up being Boomerang Latin America's most recognized and arguably most popular. In addition to its novela-heavy lineup, Boomerang also introduced programming blocks like Boombox, a music-centric block that featured artist interviews and live concerts from Latin America, the US, and the UK. By May 2011, Boomerang Latin America became the only Boomerang channel in the world to have removed animation entirely. But, as Boomerang's original slogan says, it all comes back to you. And in 2014, as part of Boomerang's global rebrand to reposition itself as a family-friendly network, Boomerang would bring back cartoon programming into its daytime schedule, as well as become the first channel to introduce the current Boomerang logo. But in the end, Boomerang Latin America was shut down and replaced by Cartoonito on December 1st, 2021, part of WBD's broader strategy to expand the Cartoonito brand and focus more on lucrative educational content for younger audiences. Although fast forward to 2025, it seems like they've already abandoned that plan. It's just funny to look back at how this version of Boomerang evolved. It went from airing shows appealing to boomers to becoming a preteen focused network to a family channel and eventually shifting towards preschool content. If anything, it just goes to show how far TV networks will pivot in order to chase viewers. If you were a rock fan growing up in the UK during the 2000s, chances are you spent a lot of time watching Kerrang! Launched in April 2001, Kerrang! Was a British music television channel owned by Channel 4 Television Corporation. It focused heavily on rock, metal, punk, and alternative music, with a strong emphasis on nu metal, pop punk, and indie rock. What made Kerrang! Stand out, especially in the pre-YouTube era, was how much the audience could participate in its programming. Viewers could text in their requests and have their favorite song played in real time. It was kind of like an interactive jukebox, and fans really loved it. In addition to this, the TV channel would air annual countdowns like the Rock 100, which ranked the most requested songs of the year, something that a lot of the channel's fans look forward to. Some notable bands that would frequently feature on Kerrang! Would include My Chemical Romance, Green Day, Limp Bizkit, Foo Fighters, and You Me at 6. Unfortunately, as digital platforms like YouTube, Spotify, and social media began to dominate how people consume music, Kerrang's viewership and revenue started to decline. By 2024, it simply didn't make financial sense to keep the channel running, and by June 30th, Kerrang! Officially went off the air. Its final song would be Fall Out Boy's Thanks for the Memory, a fitting farewell, to be honest. The screen would then fade out with a final message saying, "Rock will never die." And just like that, after 23 years, one of the UK's most iconic music channels signed off for good. On the bright side, Kerrang! Magazine and radio continue to operate independently to this day, despite the channel's exit. Teletoon Retro is like American Boomerang, except this one died with some dignity. Like Boomerang, Teletoon Retro originally started as a programming block on the main Teletoon channel, airing classic cartoons, most of which are vintage superhero shows like the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man. The block was short-lived and eventually went on hiatus, disappearing until it was revived in 2007 to help launch a dedicated nostalgia channel under the same name. Interestingly, its 2007 launch was actually the second attempt to bring Teletoon Retro to life. A proposal was floated back in 2000, but it never made it to air due to regulatory hurdles from the CRTC. After renewed approval in 2005, Teletoon Retro officially launched at 6 p.m. Eastern on October 1st, 2007, kicking off its broadcast with the Bugs Bunny and Tweety Show. In its early years, the channel mainly aired classic cartoons from Hanna-Barbera, Warner Brothers, and Golden Age theatrical shorts, along with a hearty dose of 1980s merchandise-driven shows like He-Man, Transformers, and G.I. Joe. As it entered the 2010s, Teletoon Retro expanded to include shows from Fox Kids and even 1990s Cartoon Network, with shows like Cow and Chicken and Dexter's Lab. Basically, the channel had a rule that all of its programming must be at least 10 years old, so if this channel still existed, Adventure Time would be considered retro by this point. I don't like that statement as much as you do, to be honest. In 2013, the future of Teletoon Retro and the Teletoon brand as a whole became uncertain when Corus Entertainment acquired Astro Media's 50% stake in Teletoon Canada, giving them full ownership. Shortly thereafter, Corus began restructuring Teletoon and its other channels, including the discontinuation of Teletoon Retro. On the morning of 6 a.m. on September 1st, the channel would shut down and was either replaced by Disney Channel Canada or the new Cartoon Network Canada. Fast forward to 2023, the main Teletoon channel was also retired after 26 years and replaced again by, you guessed it, Cartoon Network Canada. Ironically, the Cartoon Network that replaced Teletoon Retro in 2015 would then become Boomerang. Did that make sense? I hope it made sense.
Hola, somos Phineas y Ferb. Y hay muchas cosas increíbles en Disney XD. ¡Compruébalo!
De muchas formas.
Disney XD didn't have a lot going on. If anything, it felt like a spiritual mashup of Fox Kids and Toon Disney, so let's keep this one short. After launching separate Fox Kids channels in Australia and the UK, the brand made its way to Latin America, marking the first Fox Kids channel to operate in a language other than English. It quickly gained traction across the region thanks to a mix of dub animated shows, action series, and anime, all of which had already proven popular in other markets. Throughout the early 2000s, Fox Kids Latin America pretty much mirrored the US version. It aired shows like Power Rangers, Spider-Man, Digimon, X-Men, and other Saban classics, with the only exception being the Fairly Odd Parents. In 2001, Disney acquired Fox Family worldwide, and with that, the fate of Fox Kids was sealed. While the US version shut down soon after, the other international channels took a different route. In 2004, Fox Kids Latin America rebranded as Jetix, the same action brand seen as a block on ABC Family and Toon Disney. Jetix would go on for another 5 years until 2009 when the Walt Disney Company purchased Jetix Europe, which were really the ones responsible for overseeing Jetix channels and programming across the globe. With complete control in hand, Disney made the decision to retire the Jetix brand and rebrand it under a new name, Disney XD. Similarly to Fox Kids and Jetix in America, Disney XD had the same format and really had nothing unique, at least to my knowledge. I'm here and the channel is there. What am I supposed to do? However, the channel would see an end. In January of 2022, it was announced by Disney that Disney XD, along with Nat Geo Wild, Nat Geo Kids, FXM, and Star Life would be discontinued in the Latin America market by April 1st. This was part of a broader global trend where Disney phased out several of its cable channels to consolidate content and focused on direct-to-consumer digital services, to which surprisingly hasn't affected the US much. While Disney XD Latin America is no longer around, some of its shows did survive the purge by migrating over to Disney Channel, which as of now still exists. Let's just hope it stays that way. Fingers crossed. So I decided to put these two channels together because, well, their histories are basically intertwined, so yeah, bear with me. The Big Channel was a children's subscription TV channel in Argentina, owned and operated by Premier. The channel primarily aired shows entirely composed of American cartoons. I mean, they had almost every cartoon under the sun. Tiny Toons, Animaniacs, Transformers, Ren and Stimpy, that shitty Legend of Zelda cartoon, Tom and Jerry, Thundercats, the list just goes on and on. Despite the all-star programming, the channel wasn't created just for fun. It mainly existed to promote toys imported by the company Cartoon, which had an exclusive distribution deal with Tyco. Tyco in turn made toys for Sesame Street, Warner Brothers, and others. So yeah, the Big Channel was basically one giant commercial, but a really entertaining one at that. The channel would operate as normal until 1994 when Cartman dissolved. And I mean, since Big was created as a way to promote the toys, there was just no way to sustain the channel any longer. And by January 1995, Big Channel would cease operations. But Premier didn't sit still. Shortly after, they launched a brand new kids channel, targeting the same audience, Magic Kids. When it first hit the air, Magic Kids aired shows like Saban and Marvel, stuff like Power Rangers, X-Men, and Spider-Man, but those shows were soon pulled, likely because Fox Kids had launched in Latin America and wanted their licenses back. That's just a guess, but that doesn't sound too far-fetched. This might have been a blessing in disguise, however, as Magic would soon incorporate anime into their lineup. Just like Toonami in America, Magic will be the ones who played a significant role in popularizing anime in Latin America. While they had some similar classics like Dragon Ball and Sailor Moon, one of the most popular IPs that I never even heard of, believe it or not, is Saint Seiya. Sorry if that offends you, Latin American audience. But yeah, it was this untapped market in anime that skyrocketed Magic Kids into popularity and ultimately put its predecessor Big Channel as an afterthought. But speaking of it, Big Channel would make a return to airwaves just a few months later, but the channel would be a shell of itself, having a lot less exciting programs and shows that were taken off from Magic. Because this iteration of Big wasn't popular, it would end up being shelved on September 3rd, 2001. That's basically the surface level knowledge of the Big Channel. I could dive deeper into it, but the further I go, the more it feels like I'm getting lost in translation. Back on the topic of Magic Kids, it had so much more beyond programming. The network had theme blocks hosted by on-air personalities and even offered interactive games that you could play over a landline. Not sure how that works though. Heading into the mid-2000s, Magic Kids' influence began to fade, as licensing anime had become increasingly expensive and competitors like Cartoon Network and Fox Kids, which later became Jetix, had deeper pockets and better access to these top-tier shows. To sum it up, Magic Kids couldn't keep up. Eventually, Magic Kids officially shut down in 2006, marking the end of an era to a generation of Latin American kids who were glued to their TVs after school. Also, what sucks the most about this shutdown is that it was just taken off the air suddenly, instead of giving this channel a proper send-off. If you want a better look at this channel, this YouTuber by the name of Dos Mileros Y2K gives an in-depth look at this channel, so yeah, go check him out. The MTV and Adult Swim of Latin America. Once again, I have to thank Dos Maleros Y2K for providing an in-depth analysis for a lot of the Latin American channels which have gone defunct. Launched on November 4th, 1996, Locomotion was a 24-hour animation channel that broadcast across Latin America and the Caribbean. It was born from a joint venture between the Hearst Corporation and Cisneros Television Group, which later rebranded to Klaxon Interactive Group in 2000. From the beginning, Locomotion made its mission clear, that animation wasn't just for kids. Unlike competitors like Magic Kids, which focus on age-appropriate cartoons and anime, Locomotion leaned more into mature content. So you had anime like Cowboy Bebop and Evangelion being smash hits for the network, and you also had American cartoons like South Park. At first, Locomotion launched exclusively on DirecTV under a one-year contract, but thanks to a strong first impression and positive word of mouth, the channel expanded rapidly. By 1997, Locomotion introduced a segmented programming schedule designed to serve multiple age groups. You had mornings for kids, afternoons for teens, and nighttime for adults. This format allowed the channel to target multiple age groups while maintaining a distinct cohesive brand identity. As the channel evolved, it even dipped into the world of experimental music. One standout was Fracto, a collaboration with record label Status Discos. It started out as a 30-minute electronic music show, but later expanded into short musical segments that aired between ads. Through these kinds of projects, artists like pop group Miranda got early exposure thanks to the channel. In efforts to keeping it extra hip, Locomotion also had a pretty unique website, way ahead of its time too. It was packed with games, downloadable content, user-submitted videos, and even a virtual store. And long before social media, the site let fans engage with the channel in interactive ways, leaving feedback, watching experimental clips, and more. Also on the website there was a segment called La Caca, which is kinda gross but hilarious. Despite all this innovation, Locomotion became a victim of a corporate shakeup. In 2002, Sony Pictures Entertainment acquired the channel. A few factors played into this, including the fact that Locomotion wasn't producing original content and Argentina was dealing with a major economic crisis at the time. After the acquisition, the channel's identity started to shift and became more commercialized. That unique rebellious energy slowly faded, and the beloved mascot logo, well, it was phased out. While some of the original shows stuck around for a while, the writing was on the wall. In 2005, Locomotion officially signed off for the last time, and in its place came Animax, Sony's new anime channel with a more polished marketing approach and broader commercial appeal. While Animax stuck around until 2011, it never reached the same cultural impact that Locomotion had. For a generation of Latin American viewers, Locomotion was more than just a TV channel. It was a bold, creative space that treated animation and its audience with respect and edge. It was weird, stylish, and unapologetically ahead of its time. And that's why people still remember it today. Following Sony Picture Entertainment's purchase of Locomotion in January of 2005, the channel was revamped as Animax in August of that same year. Animax, in case you don't know, was the regional variant of the Japanese network of the same name. From the start, it operated as a 24-hour anime channel that aired a wide variety of anime dubbed in Spanish and Portuguese, including many shows that were previously broadcast on Locomotion, such as Serial Experimental Lane and The Candidate for Goddess. Meanwhile, new additions like Fullmetal Alchemist, Hack Sign, and Get Backers quickly became staples of the Animax schedule. The programming schedule typically worked like this. Series with more than 25 episodes aired on weekdays, while shorter series aired on specific days of the week. By 2007, Animax began introducing new segments and blocks to better fit the channel's theme. This included Animedia, which included Japanese music videos before that was even a popular trend, Animax News, a segment focused on anime and related topics, and a late-night adult-oriented block called Lollipop. But despite these efforts, the channel eventually faced backlash. Starting around 2008, Animax began adding non-anime programming, such as Western animation and live-action shows. While some additions like Robot Chicken, Beavis and Butthead, Lost, and 90210 were popular in their own right, the shift away from being a dedicated anime channel alienated longtime viewers. And Sony listened to the fans' advice by retiring the Latin American channel altogether, and on May 1st, 2011, Animax would be relaunched as Sony Spin, fully embracing Western general entertainment. But the gamble didn't pay off, and audiences didn't stick around, and after just over 3 years, Sony Spin shut down on June 30th, 2014, making way for the Latin American version of Lifetime, to which still operates to this very day. BBC Prime was launched on January 30th, 1995 by BBC, primarily to broadcast to Europe, the Middle East, South Asia, Asia Pacific, and Africa. As for programming, BBC Prime included a mix of everything from drama to comedy to lifestyle to even educational programs. Most of the shows were from BBC, with notable titles like Keeping Up Appearances, Absolutely Fabulous, Pride and Prejudice, and Top of the Pops. For more than a decade, BBC Prime was the go-to channel for high-quality British content not available in many regions. However, by 2009, BBC replaced BBC Prime with BBC Entertainment as part of a broader effort to streamline and modernize international offerings. Like BBC Prime, BBC Entertainment featured a range of British programs with some popular shows including Doctor Who, EastEnders, and Top Gear. BBC Entertainment would run for nearly 2 decades, eventually closing down in March of 2024 in favor of more specialized genre-specific channels. Now we have channels like BBC Brit, BBC Earth, and BBC First, each catering to a target audience. In the mid-90s, Chile was changing. A new generation was coming of age, restless, creative, and finally free to express itself after years of dictatorship. And right in the middle of the cultural shift came a bold new voice on Canal 2. Canal 2 Rock and Pop was a Chilean broadcast television channel that aired on August 16, 1995 to December 1, 1999. It was an extension of the Rock and Pop brand, which already included a popular radio station and magazine, all of which was owned by La Compañía Chilena de Comunicaciones. Similar to MTV Brazil, Canal 2 had a youth-driven focus. It was known for its bold programming, alternative tone, and experimental formats ranging from music, movies, and talk shows. It just had a bit of everything for the emerging counterculture. But behind the scenes, trouble came fast. By mid-1996, tensions between the company, Estudio Visión, and the network stakeholders led to the channel being fully taken over for a reported $1 million. This change in ownership kicked off a series of attempted course corrections as the channel struggled to keep its finances stable and its creative edge sharp. In 1998, La Compañía Chilena de Comunicaciones tried to sell Rock and Pop TV to Ibero-American Media Partners, a subsidiary of Cisneros Group, for $17 million. The deal could have been a lifeline, but Chile's National TV Council stepped in, expressing concerns over potential monopolies. Since Cisneros already owned partial ownership of Chilevisión, the deal fell apart, and with it, so did any real hope for a financial comeback. By October 1998, staff were laid off, shows were cancelled, and operations were scaled back in a last-ditch effort to stay afloat. But the losses kept piling up, reaching 721 million Chilean pesos in the first 9 months of 1999. With debt mounting and no viable future in sight, Canal 2 Rock and Pop quietly shut down on December 1st, 1999. And I do mean quietly. There was no grand send-off or final broadcast, just a blank screen with a single line of text. Buenas noches, fin de las operaciones, tan tan.
You're watching Jetix Play.
If you were a fan of Jetix back in the day, especially in the US or other major markets, the idea of a preschool Jetix channel probably sounds a bit absurd, but yeah, that's essentially what this was. Jetix Play was a preschool learning television channel owned by Jetix Europe, the same branch responsible for managing Jetix channels and programming across the globe. Think of it like a sister channel to Jetix, a Nick Jr. if you may add. The channel launched back in 2003 under a different name, Fox Kids Play, and it aired in regions like Central and Eastern Europe, Poland, Russia, the Middle East, North Africa, and Turkey. It wasn't until 2005, after the Fox Kids brand was phased out, that it officially became Jetix Play. The channel primarily aired archive animated series from the Fox Kids Europe library, including shows originally produced by Sabat Entertainment and Deke Entertainment. So, while calling it a preschool channel might sound a bit misleading, it definitely fit the kid-friendly mold. Originally, Jetix Play broadcast for 12 hours a day, from 6 AM to 6 PM, but in late 2008, its schedule was expanded to nearly 17 hours daily, running from 6 AM to 10:45 PM. But, just like the rest of the Jetix empire, its days were numbered. As Disney increased its ownership of Jetix Europe, it began phasing out Jetix channels in favor of Disney XD or Disney Channel, and Jetix Play was no exception. While most Jetix channels had folded by 2009, Jetix Play managed to hold on a bit longer until late 2010, when it was finally rebranded to Playhouse Disney in most regions. Is it Dean or Tin? I think it's Dean. Dean was a Mexican paid television channel owned by Televisa Networks, aimed at children and teenagers across Mexico and Latin America. Its programming blended entertainment and education, featuring a mix of telenovelas, live action shows, and cartoons. Which kinda makes Teen sound like the Latin American version of Boomerang. Eventually, by 2019, Televisa announced the closure of Teen and replaced it with a new channel called Bite Me, which focused on anime, video games, and other aspects of geek culture. Sounds like Mexican G4.
Просто так получилось. Крутые берега. Последние серии на этой неделе в 19:55 на семерке.
Semyolka, also known as 7TV, was a Russian television channel owned by UTH Russia, and it launched on September 17, 2001. Why that specific week in human history, I have no idea. Initially, it focused on sports programming, but over time, the channel expanded to content to include entertainment, series, TV shows, and movies. Despite a noticeable rise in viewership amongst the 18 to 54 demographic from 0.2% in 2009 to 1.5% in 2010, and even a full rebrand in August of 2011, the channel abruptly shut down just 4 months later on December 31st, 2011. This closure came as part of a larger joint venture between UTH Russia and the Walt Disney Company, which had acquired a 49% stake in UTH earlier that year. The reason being that Disney wanted a free-to-air presence in Russia, and 7TV offered the perfect opportunity to make that happen. And from there, 7TV became the Russian Disney Channel, which inherited some of 7TV's distribution, but as you expect, it went in a completely different direction, focusing on family-friendly content, cartoons, tween sitcoms, and animated movies. Basically, as you'd expect from Disney. By 2022, however, the Russian feed would cease operations following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. As a result, Disney, along with many other TV channels and Western companies, began scaling back or completely exited the Russian market. And going forward, this won't be the first channel on the list that had to disappear due to conflicts or wars, so yeah. Well, there you have it guys, that was part 2 of the defunct TV channel's Iceberg. We still have plenty ahead as there are still 3 layers left. In the next part, we'll be heading into the unknown and even illegal territory, so you don't want to miss it. Hopefully no more channels announce their shutdown because I feel like recently that's been the case and I am very busy right now. But then again, it's free content for me to make, so I can't complain. Anyways guys, my name is Luis and I am tired.